As you know, we always start a few minutes late to give people a chance to come in, and I'm sure we'll have a few more join us. Um, I'm really looking forward to going through this and just giving you all an update on some things. We've been making updates to what you can do with your site for some time, and I know that sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, so we want to make sure that you've got an updated view of what's possible in terms of branding and customization today. I have a question from Jim. I'm going to hold that till the end if you don't mind. And if there's any other questions that any of you have, go ahead and post them in the chat and we'll hit those as we wrap up. In fact, some of the things we covered today will be at least loosely connected to Jim's question. So as always, go ahead and post questions. You don't need to actually mute yourself. We're in presentation mode, so we're good there. So we're going to go through a few things, all about site customizations and configurations to better reflect your brand and the experience that you want to deliver. We're going to start by talking about the header and navigation and some of the options you have there and some of what's new. We're going to talk about some general branding you can do and then talk about the 6 homepage elements and some of the new flexibility associated with that. So digging right in, you know, your navigation and your header is an area that obviously gets a lot of exposure. Every page someone goes to, they're going to see this. Now, what we've been doing over the last 6 or 9 months is slowly adding more and more capability to what you can configure and customize. So, for instance, what you see here with San Clemente is a very nice execution where they're using a wide image. This is reminiscent of what you see on Facebook, although not nearly as tall. And this allows you to really make it feel more local. They've obviously done the pier as their oceanfront, and it's an icon in their community. Their logo is set to the left, although you do have the ability to center a logo as well if you wanted to go for a look like that. Before we had sold in that particular ad, they did a really clever thing. They had a house ad for that push down, but it actually was an extension of the background image, which isn't a bad option if you're going to have a house ad for a while. Nice way to enhance the branding as well. It was pretty slick. You also have the ability to create custom categories. Now, those of you who are new, these have been around, but for those of you who've been with us for a while, custom categories are things that is definitely a newer feature. So we've got our standard set like health and travel and so forth, which cover the basics, and most publishers use those. But custom categories allow you to do more. I think here you've got local history on San Clemente. And so this can go even further. One of our publishers has a really prominent local high school, and there's a lot of the community that rallies around that. And so they created a category called Dragon Pride. And they've got a lot of content about the sports and the school district and so forth, which plays nicely with that. So you can customize those. You can even customize today to say something else. If you'd rather have it be homepage, and we're going to add the ability to frankly remove the font altogether and make it just a home icon, which will give you a little more real estate in the nav bar. So that should be something that you'll see next week as an option. So let us know if you want to change the homepage label or use the home icon as that rolls out. But you can go in and you can make changes to your categories. Just keep in mind, if you change categories, you remove or you add new ones, the content that's already on your site won't know that that's happened. So you have to either recategorize your existing content or add new content or so forth to make sure there's something there. And on that note, if you happen to add a category and then click on it in the nav bar and there's nothing there, it'll just redirect you to the home page because there's nothing to show you. So don't think it's broken if you see that. The next is general branding. So Kitchen Drawer is a new publisher to launch with us, and they really have a unique look. Not only is their site use, interesting fonts and colors, but their whole brand is this very sort of retro. I can't exactly even put my finger on it, but you can see from this image, The Great Reads, the weekly recap, they're using this style quite a bit throughout their content. If you go to their site, you'll see this in a lot of articles beyond just the more current photography that shows up with articles. And so they've used a background image here. to give themselves a really unique look. Now, this is something that can definitely give your site something more. It can either play with the header like you saw in San Clemente or in place of it. The only thing is this particular approach does require a fairly large image, and so it makes it a little bit slower to load, although if you want to have some pattern, we could talk about that. And there's some other customizations we can do around things like the nav bar and so forth. It takes a little bit of CSS trickery, but there's some options there. So I'm not going to get into it here. None of our publishers have done much to customize the nav bar, but the idea here is we want to maintain the core framework, right? The ad locations, the calendar, the way that the content is presented, but give you the ability to represent your brand effectively in that process. Now we're going to talk about the homepage because much, if not most, of your views are actually on your homepage. So I'm going to take a minute and go through this and then go through each of the items that you see here. But first I'm going to mute myself to clear my throat. Okay, so there's 6 elements that are now available on your homepage. Not all of them are required, although some of them are. The carousel is that rotating item that you see at the top. It has 3 articles. This is fixed. There's no getting rid of the carousel because it's a nice way to use the real estate and so forth. We've toyed with the idea of letting you change the number of articles, and we're considering it, but we'd love to hear an argument for it because there's a lot of arguments against it, at least not getting carried away with too many. You don't want to add 10 or something. But the other 5 are things that you can have, not have, or customize. So local spotlight is from the business directory. Featured gallery should be self-explanatory. Featured articles is the feed. It's what you've had for a long time, and the directory search that ties to that. Featured content is a new item we're going to talk about in the homepage embed as well. And these items can not only be present or not present, but they can be reordered. So I'll give you a few examples of those at the very end so you can see what that can look like. And again, it's meant to give you the ability to customize your look and feel. And the couple of these items were created as a publisher who just joined us, was really looking for this ability to customize your look and feel. And it wasn't something we could do at the moment, but they funded that activity. So this falls into that rapid development option that we've talked about in the past. So you can all say thanks to them in the future. We've also extended those already because they were nice starting points, and so we've added some enhancements to that, which you'll see. So the local spotlight. This is a really nice new feature that we added a couple months ago, and I'm a big fan of. Now, you may not see this on your site. You do have to have a premium listing for this to appear, but if you have a premium listing, it will magically appear on your site. And what happens is any and all premium listings in the directory will appear in the local spotlight. It's like homepage advertising as part of the package for $25. So it's probably the single biggest value proposition now of becoming a premium listing, and one that should be very easy for you to sell. They're randomized, so if you get 100 or 1,000 upgrades, other than the fact that that would be amazing to have 1,000 upgrades, it'll randomize so everyone will get their moment in the sun. And of course, you can see the arrows, so you can scroll left and right and so forth. It looks good on your site. It obviously draws more attention to the directory. It has a little call to action to add yours. And so it has a lot of benefits for you besides the fact that it generates revenue. So that's a very nice piece. And we do recommend that you position this as high as you can to make it more attractive. And again, while it's still a paid placement, it's also content and it's relevant. And you can see it looks nice. The next thing is featured galleries, and we see galleries being used really inconsistently across the network, but we hope that we'll see more and more of it, especially as we add the media library improvements. But what happens here is, just like your homepage, featured galleries can be featured, promoted as the article equivalent, with a single click. That green button you see on the left indicates that it has been featured, obviously on our demo site. Now, what will happen is these will be added to the homepage, to categories, and to tag pages based on the article that's associated with. So you can see in this example, demo gallery from the 22nd, I had this on an article called Demo for Columbia, and it tagged into family category. There were some tags which don't display here. And it's also on the home page, the Today page. So if someone goes to the family category or the Today page, they're going to see this featured gallery. And it works just like the rest of the site. Up to the first 6 items will show up on the respective pages. And once you add a 7th, the oldest item will get knocked off. So it'll always stay fresh. If you keep posting galleries and keep featuring them, they'll continue to appear. So don't unfeature, just like you should never demote an article on your homepage. Just keep posting new stuff and the system will automatically adjust. Very easy to use, very fast. And you should really, however, only create a gallery if you've got more than 3 or 4 pictures. Otherwise, you can do just normal inline images. But this does dress things up quite a bit. The next thing is featured articles. And again, this is the most, the oldest item that we've had, although I'm going to revisit it because it's sometimes a point of confusion. So the carousel is literally the first 3 items from the homepage feed. And then you've got additional articles that look like this on the right. Now you can see on the left that this publisher, Southlake Style, has a number of promoted articles and 3 that are pinned. The pin does not explicitly correlate to the carousel. In fact, it usually doesn't. Most people have 1 item pinned or 2 items pinned, and then it's based on the order of which they were promoted. So whatever you hit the promote button most recently on, that will show up at the very top of the list with the exception of the pins. So the pins help you lock stuff in the carousel, but if you pin 10 things, it's going to take up your home page. So you really want to be cognizant of that. It's easy to get confused and to lose track of that. At the same time, we can now change, in fact, we've been able to do this for all. We can change the number of articles you have on your homepage if you want your feed to be longer or shorter, especially in light of some of the new elements. We can also hide the directory listing search. I know some of you didn't love it there, but it's something that you can hide if you'd like us to. So these items, if you want to change the basics, you do need to talk to us to remove the search or to change the number of articles. However, of course, you set which content appears there. Featured categories, this is probably the most obvious new item that was recently completed. And this gives you the ability to show content from your categories on your homepage. Basically, it gives greater exposure to more content to your homepage visitors, which should help more people find something of interest. Now, a couple things to note. You manage this by going to site categories, and you'll notice this feature on homepage checkbox, add them or don't add them, but when you do that and save, you'll see these start to appear. And we can customize the number of articles that you see. In this one, there's 4. There's the main image with the title, and then 3 additional ones. If you'd like more or less, you'll need to let us know, but you can set the categories there. You can set as many as you want, but obviously groups of 3 are going to work best. What will happen is you've got your homepage feed. So let's say you had 10 articles, 3 in the carousel, 7 below. Then there's never going to be a duplicate showing in these categories that also appears in the homepage feed. So if an item is in business and it's in the carousel, it is not going to be shown here. If all 10 articles on your homepage were in business, then what you see here would be the 11th article that's been 11th oldest article posted to business. And so that's going to keep it to where there's not ever this huge duplication. The only chance for duplication here exists if you have an article that's going to be, say, both police and news, and it happens to be in the top 4 of both, then you'll see it in both places. If it's the first in both, you'll see the same image. This might be a little confusing. I hope I'm not losing you here, but the point is the system will automatically generate this. And as long as you're being thoughtful with how you categorize and you're posting content regularly, it'll look great. It'll help people discover stuff, and it'll give you more flexibility without more administrative overhead. And the last item is what we're calling the homepage embed. You go to the same place as the categories, you'll see it under the custom categories field, although that page will be rebuilt later. It's only for admins. But you've got this ability to embed items on your homepage. Technically, you can embed as much as you'd like, although I'll tell you, aside from the fact that you're embedding code, which is easy to sort of screw up if you get too carried away, it can make your page run slow if you embed a lot of stuff. But what you see here is we've embedded a Twitter feed. Nice way to show more content. On the right in the sidebar, they already had their Facebook page. You may want to embed a video on your home page or a poll. I'll show you an example of one in a moment. But what this does is it allows you to have more dynamic content that really sort of hits people right on your homepage. Again, you can reorder all of these elements. So if you've got a really prominent video, you could put that at the, just below the carousel. People can watch it on your homepage. We still recommend the in this issue approach, and you should do that with a lot of your videos, but sometimes you'll have something that's really prominent, or if you're live streaming an event. I know that there's a hockey parade in LA for the Kings. If you're live streaming that event, you might want to embed that on your homepage, give you a chance to have that be there. So that is something that you can update as well, but if you want to reorder where it appears, you will need to let us know. Okay, so those are the 6 items. Obviously, I'm rapid firing through this, but as you start posting more stuff, you'll see these things either appearing in new ways. But one item that we've been talking about, and we've had publishers ask about on occasion, is polling. And there's a lot of poll software out there. However, we came across a company at an event that is doing some pretty advanced stuff around polling. This is actually something I embedded into one of our sample sites. I just took a screenshot of it to show you here. Gives you an opportunity to do a lot of interesting things, build some ongoing engagement. There's an opportunity to sell sponsorships of polls, just like you sell sponsorships of contests. Obviously, you would embed a logo here, and you would obviously reference the publishers like you do in other ways when you're promoting a contest. But as you think about this, this is an area we're wanting to get feedback from you, whether now or just sort of over the coming weeks. Think about how you would use polls, both the formal sense and the informal sense. I sort of jokingly put this together for publishers, but you could put it together for anything. And then there's a bunch of statistics which are sort of interesting, and this company has some services where they can even generate things like infographics or articles out of the poll results, so that it is following that theme that we talk about a lot, which is repurposing content. So we're exploring this as a way to crowdsource more content. They've seen some interesting stats, just to share this with you, that for every 1 comment on an article, which I know some of you have asked about getting more comments, for every 1 comment, they see 50 poll participations. I don't know if that's how they talked about it, but so it's so easy because this is anonymous. Although they're tracking people to make sure they're not double voting, it's also a little more sanitized because I can vote from options, but I can't write in. So it can be anonymous without being as risky to spam and so forth. Anyways, would love your feedback on areas that you've been thinking about running polls or would like to run polls, or maybe you have run polls. And we're going to continue to explore what they do here and see if it makes sense for us to do an integration in our app. So definitely keep us informed of what you'd like to do there. And finally, a couple things you're going to see coming soon. So we're just about done with a big update to the admin sidebar. For those of you who administer the site, you know that sometimes it has a little cross-browser support issues and some wonkiness. So that's about done, and it will make it much more straightforward and simple. We're actually stripping out some of the fanciness to make it more useful across all browsers. And then more generally, you're going to see a couple things over the next week or two. The first is geography-based events and listings. For those of you who have multiple sites in our network, or you're near another publisher in our network, this will have an interesting side effect, because as people publish their events or their listings, they'll be available to all of you. So sort of tapping the greater Locable database. This also means if you have multiple sites, you can post once and have it appear multiple places, which is fantastic. And we're going to add, as a fast follow, the ability to hide. So if somebody does post something that you don't want to show, or it's too promoted or whatever, you have the ability to hide it without deleting it entirely from the database, which will give you greater control over your site and keep them sort of engaged. So that's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to that. You're going to see a much more simple directory and event search interface, because frankly, it's all based on zip code in proximity. So look for us to ask you about what your desired radius is, what your home zip code and radius will be, which will default the results, and then visitors will be able to come in and say, oh, I want to go on vacation. Let's try a different zip code. And they'll be able to do that search there. And the media library, this is something that has been almost done for a long time, and we sort of ran into some issues, which I don't want to get into, but it's really almost done. So this is going to be rolling out hopefully next week, and it's going to just greatly improve your media handling. So as you're uploading images, trying to use older images, there's some search features built in, a lot of good stuff that we're excited about. So those are things you can look forward to, and I'm sure we'll do more detailed reviews of those in the coming weeks. So with that, I'm going to switch and I'm going to answer Jim's question. Pardon me. And if you have any other questions about what we've talked about here or generally related to running your business, go ahead and post them now. So Jim asked, Brian, a client of mine is looking for some good examples of advertorials. Do we have anything? Well, I'll start by saying yes. And when you think about advertorials, these really should be content first. It should be something of interest. It should be things that's educational. Not that every one of your readers is going to care about it at the moment, but if they were sort of in the market, that they would be interested. So, for instance, I have a old car that was given to me a few years ago. Old as in 1984, not as in classic. And so now I don't need it anymore, and I was trying to figure out what the best option is. Should I sell it? There's no blue book value. Should I scrap it? If you were somebody who specialized in restoring old cars or something, you could talk about comparing your options. You could really break it down and make it simple. Likewise, if you're a plumber, you can talk about ways to avoid your pipes freezing in the winter, and ways to, I always see signs, trenchless, pipe repair. How does that work? Well, an advertorial would be a great way to explain that with pictures, with video, and of course with text. So start by thinking about and talking with your advertisers about what are the common questions that you face? What are the common misconceptions that you face? What makes you different? What's your value proposition? Are you the cheapest? If so, why? And why is that not a risk for your customers? Are you the most expensive? If so, why? And why is that not a risk for your customers? Everyone has their strengths, and so these advertorials are meant to highlight that, educate consumers, and start a conversation. One of the advertorials that comes to mind, I'll go to Mansfields Site, is something that Cumin Learning Center, Cumin, I'm unsure about that. Did quite a while ago, and I actually posted it for her before our assigned authorship. But you can see the title, "Striving for Our Best Without the Stress." They obviously wrote this, and they quoted some prominent figures, and then they sort of expanded on the ideas, and they did that a few times here. They have some links out. I think that's a link to the quote page. And so as a parent, if you're thinking about how can I help my kids do more, this isn't, here are 5 things that you're failing your kids at. It's, it's the positive spin. And then at the bottom, it's the recognition of the author and the source and so forth. So, so it can be simple. This obviously doesn't have a gallery or videos, but it's a nice, simple example of what can be done. What sort of industry are they in? And actually, as Jim's responding, I'll just quickly show you what these upgrades look like in aggregate. So San Clemente's site here, obviously they set a background color. That doesn't slow things down at all. They've got the featured categories here. Then they have the feed below. And then the galleries at the bottom. They only have 3. If they had a 4th, it would roll over. They don't have they're brand new, so they don't have any premium listings. Only Oswego, they're newer, but they've been doing a great job. And so they've got an upgrade. Then they've got their featured categories and photo galleries, and then the feed at the bottom. And then at the end of that, their Twitter page. So there's a number of options, obviously. you can do a lot with it to customize your site. Same basic approach here. You'll notice, by the way, if you don't have an image associated with the first article, it'll simply sort of collapse up, although images clearly look best there. Okay, shifting back, manufacturing high-end lawn care equipment. So, just some things that come to mind is, what's the difference between a push mower, the basic riders, and why do I need four-wheel steering and all these things? Also, things like, think about what the environment is like where you live. So common things that you face, maybe in the wintertime you get a lot of snow, and so there's implications to lawn care for that people need to be aware of, right? You see an ad on television from Lowe's, but it probably isn't customized for each part of the country. So you might see people in the Northeast or the Southwest maintaining their lawn. How can they come in and offer a unique perspective, lawn care in Wisconsin and so forth. So you really want them to think about, why do they do what they do? What are they passionate about? Why do people walk in? Why don't people walk in? And all those things create sort of a long list of options. And then, of course, pictures. There's no reason why they can't do before and after, right? If the equipment they provide has a discernible benefit that's visual, have them take before pictures, and then after using the service or the equipment, after pictures, and talk about what was done, why it was needed, what's different, etc. People love looking at portfolios, especially things that are visual like home and garden and so forth. It's just fun to look at. So hopefully that gives you a few ideas. Definitely heavy on photos if you can. Actually, one other idea that just came to mind, sorry for brainstorming on the fly. Car and Driver is pretty much exclusively about introducing you to cars and their reviews and so forth. That same basic approach could be used here. They could even shoot a video when a new piece of equipment comes in, if they test it or just sort of play with it or put it together or whatever. They can shoot a video, they can write an article, and sometimes it's fun to geek out on technology and so forth. So any of those things could be an interesting way for them to build traffic, and of course it's highly shareable, and you should promote it to email and so forth as that happens. All right, another question. How do we rearrange the featured homepage categories if they're above the feed? Will that automatically change the order of the way the articles are displayed? So the only reason that the feed, or the only way the feed and the categories are related, is because the system will first check and say which articles are on the homepage. In this case, there's 10. And it doesn't count the pagination. Once it rolls off to page 2, they're free to go into the featured category. So as long as it's not here, then it goes and says, give me all the local history articles and show me the first 4 of those not on the homepage, the first 4 health, the first 4 whatever. So whether it's above, below, the location doesn't matter one bit. In fact, should you decide, I don't think this is the right thing to do, but if you wanted, you could say, I only want to show 3 articles in the feed, and there would be no feed down below. It would just be your featured categories here. Again, I don't recommend that. I think there's a lot of value in the vertical scroll, but that's an option. Hopefully that answers your question. Actually, just to rereading this, so the featured categories will show in the same order as your categories up across the top: local health, local history, health, community. You can see travel's not included, so it's not included here. We don't have a real elegant way to reorder these, although we are looking at a simple solution. So if you really wanted to move them around, although I'll tell you, analytics shows that very few people actually click on the individual categories, as in like under 2%. Most people see an article and jump to it, or they go straight to it from Google or Facebook or email. This should hopefully increase discovery and maybe even category views by giving them another way to click into that category. But that's why we haven't made reordering a priority. It doesn't matter, frankly, that much if arts is on the far right or far left or whatnot in terms of click-through. If we come across a few kids doing lemonade stand, can we photograph in public without legal concern? So news, this is not legal advice. That's my standard CYA. News and factual reporting is news and factual reporting. I don't remember ever giving permission to letting people like take pictures of me when I played baseball or football in high school. And clearly there were hundreds of kids, so that was never going to happen. So I think that's okay. Obviously, you wouldn't want to identify them by name or necessarily address and so forth. And you'd want to ideally talk to them and their parents just simply to beef up the story with some facts. And of course, they're going to be much more likely to promote that story if it makes them look good and so forth. So I think you can go that route and you'll be covered. I know there's the whole First Amendment thing, so I think you're pretty well taken care of if it's something that happens in public. If it were in private, then I'm not so sure. But if it's sort of public domain, it's public domain. But definitely do that, because you definitely want those kids to feel proud, and the parents are going to share it, and then their friends are going to share it, and it's really good traffic generating content that's frankly easy to do. Great questions so far. Any others before we wrap up for the day? All right. Well, hopefully this gives you a better sense of what you can do with your site and what you can do on your own and where we need help. Obviously, if you have any questions, just reach out to us. We're going to keep adding new features and new capabilities to help people discover content. And the key is grow the content, use the strategies that we've been talking about for the last month or two, and these features will sort of just work. They're going to show off what you've been working on and help you grow your traffic. So with that, have a great afternoon, and thanks for joining us today.